Welcome back to the Tri Radar podcast. Today we are joined by Jordan Matthews, who was the female winner of the Bastion. So we caught up with Tom a couple of weeks ago, and today we're going to chat with Jordan. Really interesting. I've never known anybody get into triathlon through injury, but Jordan was a dancer, and she'll tell us about how triathlon has helped rehabilitate her. So she'll go through her training, and she will go through what races that she's got coming up over 2022, what she enjoyed most about last season, and how she fits it all in. So without further ado, here is the interview. Well, welcome back to the podcast. I'm here with Jordan Matthews. Nice to have you on the show.
Thank you very much for having me. Excited to have a little chat.
So we pulled you on because Jason and I do some work at Castle, and we saw you come across a rather damp finish line back in June when it was supposed to be middle of the summer and boiling hot, and you won the Bastion there.
I did indeed, and I actually made a bit of a spectacular finish where I actually there's a photo of me slipping across the finish line as I've gone to put my hands up, and I've just literally, it's like I've fallen on a banana. It was rather embarrassing, but yeah, that kind of showed exactly what the day was like.
Yeah, God. I had to get my car towed out by a tractor, which was an experience in itself.
Yeah, it was. Oh, I think the sun eventually came out, but I mean that was about 11 hours too late. I think it was full on British weather. That was for sure.
So before we dive into the Bastion, it'd be great to find out how did you get started in triathlon?
Yeah, so I started 4 years ago. I actually kind of came in it through injury, which is kind of bizarre. So I was a professional dancer and singer, so I did a lot of shows and did a lot of dancing, which meant my hip placement was always like outwards. And alongside that, I did a lot of kickboxing as well. And my hips were basically giving up at the tender age of 24. So I was like, I needed to, when I came off I worked on cruise ships, and when I came off my last cruise ship, I was like, oh, I need to find something that's more linear. So yeah, I was also looking for like a more of a community-based club to join, because I'd come back and sort of needed to make sort of new friends and stuff. So I found a local club, and then worked out that actually the pain kind of went when I started training sort of more linear. So because if you think about it, running, cycling and swimming, it's all this motion as opposed to sort of side motion. So
who'd have thought triathlon would be therapy for injury?
I know, right?
Crazy. And so you're out on the cruise ship. So whereabouts were you? How long were you off for? Sort of months at a time.
Yeah, so I did. So I did several other contracts as well, which meant that I was sort of traveling around the country. Then I went international. My last ship was I was away for about 9 months. So yeah, when I came back, I was like, I think I had enough of that. I've always sort of been into sport, fitness, but it was very much about looking good, if that makes sense. Like the fitness I was doing and going to the gym, given the industry that I was in, you needed to look good. And I think I just had enough of it being about what you look like, and more about doing it for a challenge, I think. So yeah, that's kind of how I got into it. And then I literally joined a club. It must have been because I came back in sort of May time, and I think I joined the club and I did my first one at Dorney Lake in the early July. So I got the bug straight away. I joined a club and everyone was like, yeah, do one. I was like, oh, okay, let's do it. So yeah.
How did you fare in that first one? Was it? Did you realise then that actually, do you know what? I'm not too shabby at this.
Yeah, I suppose I've always ran. I mean, never like properly, but I've always sort of, even before then, I would always go back and do a park run and always do all right. Like it's always just been something that I've always been okay at. Cycling, I got a bike when I asked for a bike for my 21st to do the London to Brighton. So I had a road bike. Again, I probably would go out and do like 20 or 30k and feel like I'd, gone for hours. It seemed like such a mammoth thing back then. Swimming, I'd learnt to swim. I'm the last of three kids. So I think by the time my mum got to me, it was very much a case of, is she going to drown? No, fine. Come on, let's find another sport or something. So yeah, the swimming was always, and still is, the biggest challenge for me. So yeah, I think I did all right. I feel I did one of those, like, the, it was one of the, I think it was like banana triathlon or something, where the swim
Yeah.
was slightly shorter. So, which kind of was all right for me because I knew I would be fine on the bike and the run, but it was just the swim being in open water. So, yeah, I think when I finished it and I was still running all right, I think, oh, actually, I think I might be all right at this. So, yeah.
And what's and so you started off with your club.
Mm.
Did you go into coaching? Did you coach yourself? Did you go source a coach? How did you, when you realised that you were going to start taking on the bigger distances? How did you approach that?
Yeah, so I stuck with the shorter distances probably for the first year or two, yeah. And then there was a coach that was attached to my triathlon club the local club here, which I then sort of, yeah, started working with him. And then he moved away from the club, and then I moved away from the club, and we sort of then just sort of worked together for 2.5 years, probably. Yeah, was about 2.5 years. And then it was just kind of just trying different distances because I didn't really know what I was good at, to be honest. And I think I think a lot of people fall into the trap is that you kind of just go and you're like, oh yeah, I'll just go long straight away. So I did fall in the trap of doing that, which I'll probably talk about later on as to maybe I might reshuffle that a little bit. But yeah, so I kind of then booked my first half, which I did Holcombe half outlaw in 2019. Was that the year before the pandemic? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah. Yeah. This is such a blur now, all these years. So I did that, and then that was my first one, and I won my age group in that, so that was cool. And I think I came maybe like 10th or 11th female, which was quite good for my first sort of outing, really. And then I then did the same year. I then did like a last minute book. I went to Lanzarote and did the half there as well. So yeah, and then it was like. Then obviously the pandemic hit, and then I was like, no, I won't go long yet. I think I'm still a bit too, think I've got a bit too much speed still maybe to use before I go too long. And then the pandemic hit, and I was like, oh, I'll go long. So then that's kind of how I fell into doing Hever Castle, because I was supposed to be doing Lanzarote in May last year. That then got pushed back to June. Then it got pushed back to July, and actually it was the same. It did go ahead. It was the same day as Hever Castle, but at the time I couldn't isolate for 2 weeks, so that's when I did literally a last minute like email to Castle Series to just be like, "Is there any space, please?" Literally 2 weeks before the race. So yeah, they managed to get me in, which was really lucky, and just meant that all the training I did didn't go to waste. So,
Yeah, I mean, Lanzarote is a notoriously tough iron distance race, and I mean the Bastion's it's not flat, is it? But I mean, compared to Lanzarote,
yeah.
it must have been a bit easier than you were expecting.
Well, I don't. It's hard to say because I haven't done Lanzarote. So but I've obviously done the half. But it was just so different. I mean, the climbing was give or take 100 meters different.
Oh
so,
wow! Okay.
Yeah. So the bike. So in terms of my bike fitness, I was all right. But it was different because you would obviously have the wind and the heat to contend with, as opposed to we had wind, rain. It was like really sketchy on the road.
That was biblical. That rain. That was something else.
The rain that came down. I literally got out of the water, and it was probably I'd been on the bike for probably 5 minutes, and then the heavens just opened. And it was probably like that for about an hour and a half. But yeah, so it was different. But I think I was in that mental state of I knew Lanzarote was going to be really tough. So I'd kind of, built up that it was going to, I mean, they're going to be tough anyway, whatever you do. But yeah, so they were different, but they were also quite similar in terms of that they were both brutal. So,
And how did you find the build up? I mean, obviously lockdown gave, I think, people. I think it gave us triathletes a little bit more flexibility with training. We had a bit more time to sort of do it at our leisure, I guess, rather than kind of have to cram it in. But I mean, training for an iron distance event is you need to be committed. So how did you fit all of that in?
well, I was probably quite different to everybody else because I was in the police at the time.
Right?
So where everyone else was having loads of time, I was having quite the opposite.
Yeah, God, yeah. So you were under loads of pressure then.
Yeah, so I obviously didn't get the whole work from home or anything like that, and I was working shifts, night shifts, and I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it was hell. It made the finish line even better, I think. Yeah, it was really difficult. I suppose on my days off, it meant that there were no real like commitments or social commitments or anything like that, so I could train then. But yeah, I didn't actually have that pleasure that I was seeing on Instagram by everybody else who was like managing to do like lunchtime spins and things like that. But
Are you quite sort of committed? You'll carve out sort of set times each week for what you're going to do and stick to them.
yeah, almost a little OCD, but I have I have a little whiteboard, and I literally at the beginning of the week I just write in exactly what I'm doing. Yeah, and I will almost work backwards, like especially when you're like swimming, you're thinking, right, it's going to take me 5 minutes to have a shower. It's going to take me 5 minutes to get ready. Everything is done like literally to the T to make sure, especially when I'm no longer in the police, but when I was in the police, it was like, I had to leave by this time to make sure I was there. And yeah, so I am very good at being organized, in that sense. So yeah, I was lucky in that I could sort of, be a bit more flexible. But I did then move to, I was on like the emergency response team. And then because triathlon was such a big part of my life, I did move to a different team, which was a little bit more flexible, with the timings, and meant that I was not doing night shifts because I just could, my body was I just couldn't do it. I mean, I don't think I could do it anyway, but then having to try and run after 3-4 hours sleep was just, it wasn't easy. So yeah, no, I'm glad I sort of moved away from that.
And is it still a challenge squeezing things in now? You're out of the police and
yeah, so at the moment I'm sort of like in that in between stage. So I actually do have a lot more time than I had before. But even when you have time, I always think even if you have loads of time, you still don't have enough time. Like you're still squeezing things in all the time. So I'm still really as I was then. I was just I've maybe got a bit more time to do sort of the extra bits like rolling out and stretching and things like that probably I ignored a little bit more when I was in the police. But yeah, I am just really organised. I know exactly what I need. My coach probably finds me very annoying where I'm like, can you please send me the week? I just need to know what I'm doing. So yeah, it's good though. They understand, so it's good.
So obviously, you've had you told us about the hips and the shift patterns. So has there been any other challenges that you've had to overcome to, kind of fit this sport in with life?
I'm actually having a bit of a challenge at the moment. I have been out the water for 12 weeks. Well, I went back last week. I've had like ongoing ear infections.
Oh no!
That just kept, just went, then came back, and went, and came back. So I've had, so when I started, because I got a new coach in October, November time, and he does more sort of more duathlon. So I was going to do the swimming separately and join Masters, a club near here, and just do it all separately, really. And I was like really keen. I was like, now I'm gonna really smash the swimming because it's always been my weakness. And I was like, this is the year that I'm gonna get faster. And then literally within the first month, I was like out, and I was so angry.
I was going to say, how are you when like there's an injury setback? Are you a good patient?
No, not really. Not really. Although I think the lockdown might have helped that slightly because, I just had to think, well, I managed without a pool last year and it was fine. I think it's just a thought of that everybody else is still swimming and I'm not. Whereas in lockdown, we were all on the same boat.
It's amazing how quickly the swim comes back, isn't it? I mean, I'm not a great swimmer, and I've invested a lot of time in trying to get some sort of technique and endurance. And I was so worried when we weren't able to go to the pool. And you actually, I think I came back better for it in many respects.
Yeah. I think I did actually when probably the second lockdown I did because I was really, really made sure I did all like sort of the indoor stuff, which obviously built up muscles, but I don't know, maybe I wasn't as good this time, or I've just gone back to being with quicker people, and then it's just made me realise that the gap is really big. Like literally at this swim club, like 10 seconds slower than I was 3 months ago. But it's one of those things, and I am learning to deal with things like that a lot better each season when there's something maybe happens. I've just really, I've improved. Well, I've just been focusing on my bike run, and actually, that is something that my strengths do lie. And I almost wonder whether I'm a bit of a believer that maybe the universe was trying to tell me something anyway, that maybe, I'm going to do some duathlons this year. So maybe it's the universe telling me that's something that I should do. I don't know. We'll see. I'm just kind of taking it as it comes and just trying to get my swim volume back up, and we'll see how that goes. But I would never say never to duathlon or cycling, or running, in separately. So yeah.
I've got the duathlon worlds in May, and I went to Salou last year, and the swim was cancelled, and they put a 5K run in instead. And I have to say, during the second run, I was beginning to wonder why I'm going to the worlds. It was horrible.
Is that Denmark?
Yeah.
Yeah, I am potentially maybe going to go. So yeah, I'm unsure at the moment. It all depends. In the next, I have a month to kind of source out, I think, whether or not, because I'm supposed to be going to Lanzarote in May, but I don't know. We'll see. I'm just gonna see how the next month goes, and then
see how it all pans out.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's what I've learned with lockdown and with sort of probably finding my new coach and having a different, just somebody else to talk to, I guess. And that's what I was going to talk about earlier, is that maybe I went long too quickly, and maybe there's some other things that I could maybe do first whilst I'm a little bit younger, got a little bit more speed on my side before maybe going back to going long. I don't know. I'm just kind of using this year as a bit of an experiment, because it's kind of like I feel like I've had a bit of a new start with a new coach, and yeah, we're just gonna play it by ear and kind of see what happens, which is kind of exciting.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, you've done well at long distance, and you're only going to get better at it. One would hope. So
yeah,
why not experiment?
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I'm just kind of eager to see how fast I can get. So yeah.
So what does experiment mean for you? Are you thinking you want to have a really good crack at some standard distance, or
maybe standard and 70.3. Yeah, just to see. I think from more of a training point of view, to just try and just keep the speed up and not lose any speed, because it is difficult when you go long. I mean, I know some of the pros do it, but I think even they would say, it is difficult to keep that speed.
Well, I mean, Lucy Charles obviously seems to manage it, but I think she's a bit of an anomaly. She's
yeah. I think you can throw anything at her and she'd be all right. But but then even her, when you compare, she's world class in sort of the longer distance, but she's not coming up first, with the sort of shorter distance stuff. But I mean, I'm pretty sure she will do eventually.
Yeah, I think she got that. I think she put her mind to it. She probably
Yeah.
could.
Yeah, exactly. But no, it's a completely different thing. I was always worried. I think I went long because I was concerned about my swimming being slow. So therefore, in my head, it's like, well, I've got longer to catch up on the bike and the run.
Did you enjoy it though? I mean, the actual process and the distance.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did. And you've got longer to. You've obviously got longer to sit in it, and it's almost in a weird way like slightly more enjoyable because there's no stress, and you can, like you get to a nutrition and you can almost like walk through, have a gel, have a bar, and then carry on. There's no like frantic,
Smorgasbord of gels.
Yeah, literally. You could see your family as you're walking past, and it's like, you just think, actually, for these 10 seconds, I'm just gonna take my time and do it. But yeah, it's kind of, but then you've also got like the recovery of it is so much longer. So you go long, you can maybe do one in the season, two, I think probably is your maximum. Yeah, so I don't know. I think if I could get more, if I go shorter for a bit, maybe I'll get some bit more race experience and then hopefully go back to being long. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, 70.3s you can fit a good couple in a year. Go 3,
Yeah.
4, even I guess if you're competitive.
Yeah.
But I mean, I see quite a lot of my sort of club mates. They kind of they have that natural journey where they progress to maybe a middle distance is a big deal, and then before long they feel like they've got to do a long course,
Mm-hmm.
and I've not quite got there yet. I really enjoy middle distance,
Yeah.
and I don't have that desire just yet to go long. But plenty of my friends they do, and they kind of, why do you want to do it? And it's never, well, because I really want to do it. It's just kind of like I'm going to have to do it now before I get too old.
Yeah. And I think there's like a pressure within the triathlon community that you've not really done a proper triathlon until you go full. And it's like, well, no, because, and I try and explain this to people, like a sprint can be just as hard as a full. Like, it's
I find them harder. I honestly,
yeah,
I find the sprints now, they just kill me.
yeah, exactly. It's I do think there is this thing of like, the brand and things, and everyone's like, yes, I need it, you know. But yeah, I think I fell into the trap of that probably during lockdown. So yeah, but it's good to have another perspective on it sometimes, and someone being like, should you? I was like, maybe I shouldn't. I've still got a lot of years ahead of me to go long. So, but the good thing is now I know I can do it. So, and I've
Yeah,
done it.
and
So,
some.
and it, yeah, and it's yeah, and I'm capable of doing it. So when the time's right and I want to switch it on, then I can. So yeah.
So let's talk about the Bastion. So you were kind of a couple of weeks out. You got in,
Yeah.
and it's probably not the best prep, is it, for a race? Kind of everything, just trying to get all your ducks in a row. So how did you approach the couple of weeks when you knew you were going to do the race?
I suppose I was still, because it was so late and I literally made the decision to not go to Lanzarote 2 weeks ahead. I was still in the headspace. All of my training plan was all still catered towards that exact weekend. So nothing really changed that much other than just the logistics of, I mean, actually the logistics was easier. My auntie lived around the corner, so I knew that I had a place to go. I suppose I hadn't had, and maybe I would have gone and had a look at the course or gone and cycled there if I'd had a bit more time. So yeah, I just kind of mapped out the course, made sure I knew what I was doing. But yeah, nothing particularly changed that much other than, I suppose, maybe my nutrition wouldn't have changed that much. Obviously I knew I wasn't going to sweat as much, so in terms of amount of electrolytes and things like that. But yeah, no, not really that much difference. Just trying to get my head around a new course.
So sometimes it's best not to know, isn't it? Just get out there and do it.
Yeah, exactly. And you just don't know the thing. That's the only thing about, I find, with British racing, is you just don't know what the weather's going to be. And I am not great in the cold. Like
Well,
I'm really bad.
I
Really.
think at least there wasn't a sea swim.
Yeah, yeah, that would have been. Yeah, actually, the water was. I think the water was warm because it's quite shallow. The water there at Hever Castle. So yeah, that was fine. But it was like when I got on the bike and it did start raining. It got really cold. I think it was probably about 16 degrees, which
You,
isn't
you were in
warm.
you were just in tri suit, weren't you? You just yeah.
I had no like nothing. I didn't even take a jacket. I didn't. Yeah, it was
But
quite a funny story.
I guess no one was really thinking it was going to be like if you're going to get rain, it was going to be that biblical.
No, and I think the day before was sunny, and I think it was like, yeah, it might rain in the morning, but it definitely wasn't forecast to rain the way it did.
No, I
No.
mean just to give listeners the perspective. So the day it was June, it was ground was pretty dry, and it rained like solid for a good few hours to the point where when the sun came out and the car park, the field was literally a quagmire, and two tractors were having to pull everybody out. I mean, it was nothing the race organisers could do. It just it was just a freak, wasn't it?
It really was. And also the issue is by the time I'd got on the run, because of that weekend, they have so many races happening. By the time I got on the run, it was an absolute mudfest because people had obviously like been sliding around in it. Like,
What shoes did you have for it? Did you
well,
have your best race shoes?
yeah, because this is the thing is I'd prepped for Lanzarote road racing 30-degree heat. I had like a pair of road shoes. I obviously saw on their website it said we recommend trail shoes. I was like, well, it's 2 weeks away. I can't go and buy a pair of trail shoes and hope that they work. So yeah, I was slipping everywhere. Like at one point holding onto trees because it was that bad and having to go around the mud, holding onto trees so I wasn't slipping.
But all those dance skills came into practice, didn't they?
Big coordination and good core,
Yeah.
yeah.
What was your run split for the day? Because your time was really good.
Yeah, I think what was it? I think it was a 3:40. I think it was.
I mean, that's great given the ground conditions there.
Yeah. So yeah, I was in shock when I finished, and I was like, oh, that was actually quite. I was like, but then it makes you think, doesn't it? You think, oh, what could I have done? If it was on the road. But the good thing about the mud, this is the positive, was that I found that it didn't hurt my knees or joints or anything because it was soft underfoot. Because I was expecting it around maybe 30k to be, really suffering with my sort of just joints, I guess. But I actually felt surprisingly all right.
We were talking to Tom last week about
Mm.
his race, and he was sort of saying that once you kind of got like an hour into the bike, you can and you because he said it was a bit horrible to start with,
Mm.
and I can understand why everyone would be cautious because coming down that hill from Ashdown Forest is pretty steep, isn't it? And you twitchy when it's dry. So
Yeah, yeah, and because obviously it's not closed roads, so there was cars, but the cars were also going really slow because they obviously couldn't see because their window wipers were going mad. Um, so yeah, there was a lot of speed. I think a lot of speed lost, like for things like that. But I had I didn't even think about it, but I had my visor on, but I couldn't take my visor off because it was there was just so much rain. Like I didn't have the
right.
coordination, so I just couldn't see anything. But it was dangerous.
I mean, when this is all going on, what are you thinking? Are you just thinking, right, we just got to grind it out?
There was probably a lot of effing and blinding underneath the visor. That was for sure. To begin with, thinking, oh my goodness, surely this can't be for the whole thing. But actually, I got really cold. The first hour, I was really cold, and I was thinking, there's no way I can do this. And I remember coming out of the swim and just felt a bit like, I don't know, a bit sick. I honestly don't know why, but I actually stopped in the swim for a bit and like even breathstroked for like 30 seconds to a minute. just thinking, oh, I feel a bit queasy. And I think it was just all the nerves and stuff. And then I got on the bike and I just really didn't feel like eating. But obviously I knew I did. And then after and then the rain came down. But also I think it was a bit of a distraction from the pain that you were kind of, your legs and things were feeling. So yeah, after about the hour and a half, I probably warmed up and then I was okay. But the first hour and a half with the rain, I was just freezing, like fingers, toes, everything was just absolutely sodden. Like,
But you came through it, and you first on the podium.
yes, that was nice. Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was really lovely. And every time I actually really enjoyed the run because you came through 4 times. It meant that, or three times and then finished. I saw my family every time we came round, and the support was great. And yeah, it was just, and even the people out, like all the volunteers and stuff, were lovely. And then it was beautiful. The run was beautiful, although there was literally approximately 50 meters of tarmac. Everything else
Yes.
off roads, which I don't even like now. So this weekend, I had a training weekend with my coach, and literally the day before, it was a Friday, I said, I really hate running in mud. It just annoys me. I just can't run fast. And then we did a park run on Saturday morning, and it was just grass and mud, and I was like, oh, I just hate it. It just annoys me. I just think I don't know how people do cross country. I mean, it's good training, I guess.
Yeah, I mean that's one way to look at it.
Yeah, exactly.
So what else did you do last year, and how did you get on at those races?
Yeah, so last year I started off. I actually had a little like dabble into sort of doing like some TT cycling stuff, just for some practice really, for getting in my position, and then I went and did the Big East
Yeah.
in Essex, but it got cancelled halfway through. So it was
Oh
that
no.
was right at the beginning of the year, and when it was really really cold,
Yeah.
um, and the swim got shortened. It was like 12. I think it must have been like literally bang on 12 degrees in the water. So they shortened it to a K, which I mean it's fine, but it was just so cold. It was and again, I don't do very well in the cold. And then we got out, and then there was a crash on the bike, but not like cyclists. It was a tractor went over, and like the whole road was shut, so they had to stop the whole thing. And then they came back and they said if you wanted to go and do the half marathon, you could. But at that point, I was just so cold. I was like, this is just dangerous for me. So yeah, that was a bit annoying because I had to travel all the way there, and then it got cancelled. But yeah, it was one of those. And then I think I booked in then for the week after to go and do Bedfordshire Triathlon. So I did that one. I won that. Again, it wasn't overly fast. It was quite traily. But again, it was just good to get one done under my belt, especially
Yeah.
after lockdown. And then we had the freak weather. Then it suddenly became really, really hot in June for about a week. And then I did one at Dorney. It was the same day as the PTO event at Dorney, so they had the one in the
Yeah.
morning. Yeah, so that was quite cool. I always try and do them because it's local. They're really good training races for me to do.
I've heard great things about the Dorney Lake tries. They look really good. I think I have to try and maybe do one this year. I think.
Yeah, they are, and you know what you're gonna get, and generally they're really good to like do good PBs and things like that. Yeah, so that was good. So I did that one. I think I came second in that one. And then I had Hever. And then I had quite a bit of a gap because obviously I needed to recover. And then I booked in last minute when Bolton said they were going to do a 70.3. So I booked in last minute for that. So that I finished off the season, with Bolton 70.3 the end of September.
And how did you get on at Bolton?
I came third overall. So
That's really good.
yeah, I was super chuffed with that. Really, really chuffed with how that race went. Again, I just seemed to choose the worst, the hardest races in terms of like I don't know roads and sort of hills. But that was testing. It's a tricky old bike course, and then it's very technical coming down, and the road surface is not great up there. But actually, the Bolton Full Ironman was the same day as Hever Castle.
Yeah.
So they had the rain, but it looked like that they had the rain even worse than what we did. So, yeah.
So you had a good last year. So this year, you got any plans? You looking at maybe trying to get a pro license? Is that on the horizon for you?
I mean, that would be the dream at some point. But I think I'm just kind of, I'd prefer to get more racing under my belt before I try and do that, because I think there's one thing getting a pro license, but there's another thing actually being able to have a career in actually winning. I personally don't necessarily see the point in getting a pro license if you then can't get on a podium and win money and things like that. So I'd prefer to get more racing under my belt, and if the time came and it was right and it happened, then yes, obviously I'd love to. But I did have obviously Lanzarote planned for this May that I postponed from last year. But as I said earlier, I'm having a little rethink as to whether or not that's going to go ahead. But I've got a couple of duathlons booked in. I've got sort of a half marathon booked in February. I like to do it in like quarters almost.
Yeah.
So I was planning up until Lanzarote, and then I was going to see where that took me. If I'd qualified, I was trying to maybe qualify for the Worlds, and then I was going to plan the next bit. But yeah, we'll see how the ear goes, which is kind of, yeah, we just need to see, because if that starts unfortunately getting infected, then maybe I'll look at the World's Duathlon. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's probably not very specific answer to your question there.
Well, if you do the World's Triathlon, you have to give us a shout and let us know.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and that would be like 2 weeks prior to Lanzarote anyway, so it would kind of work in terms of when I was planning to race. So yeah, I might just postpone Lanzarote for another year, but we'll see how we go.
So if you were kicking off again and knowing what you know now, what advice would you give yourself?
Not to feel intimidated by kit.
Yeah.
When I first went in and I was like, oh, look at that person, they've got that. Oh, that tri-suit looks really good. They must be fast. And actually, like, yeah, taking the pressure off of people can buy really expensive kit and it really doesn't mean that they're fast or anything like that. So, yeah, definitely that. I think also just always having perspective, and having maybe something else that you enjoy doing as well, or other friends and family, because I have such a lovely community of people, of triathlon friends and things like that, people I train with. But having that other side of life as well is, I think, really important. So making sure that you keep that. They all think you're nutters, but that's fine. You know, we know we're not, or maybe
it's great to have perspective and people outside of the sport as well, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I would say 100% join a club or a community to begin with. Even if you don't stay there, like I only stayed at my local club for 2 years. And then I wanted to I probably outgrew it a little bit. But all my local mates around here, I've met through the club. So I still have all my local friends that I can train with or do long rides with, you know, if I'm not doing specific sessions and stuff. Which, I mean, during lockdown was just really helpful when you're on Swift and you've got Discord going and you're talking to everyone. It's
trying to remember how to socialise with people.
I know, actually go outside. But now this year, last year I did everything inside, obviously because of the lockdown, but also because I just thought it was easier and it was better training, blah, blah, blah. But I'm kind of having a bit of this year now, I'm really forcing myself to go out, even if it's cold, because I would just moan about the cold all the time. I'm like, nope, I've got to get tougher. So now I'm out all the time. Which I don't know. I don't know which one's actually better for you.
My coach did a similar thing with me. He said, you can go ride outside. I'd fallen into that habit. Even like my long rides, I was just doing them on Zwift, and it was like, well, you can go outside. And yesterday I went out. It was freezing, and we've been quite lucky, I think, with it being fairly mild. But yesterday was a proper cold one here, and it was beautiful out, and I just thought, yeah, actually, sometimes it's good to remember that it's not all about hitting numbers. It's you enjoy the sport.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say as well. Is like ignore, just don't compare data all the time. Like and I think everybody can, or especially like on Instagram, or the amount of, that person's training this much, they've put on their Instagram, they're doing this, and just trust. I mean, if you are with a coach, like, trust. You have to be able to trust your coach first and foremost, I think. And I've been really lucky, like both of mine, like my old one and my new one, I really trust. And I've had that. I've been able to be really open with them as well. But I've come from a real like data. One was really, really data driven to one not so data driven. So now I've kind of got the best of both. I
Yeah.
understand it, but I also don't rely too much on it. And I think that's really important, is knowing, like, going by feel and going by how you feel on the day is really, really important. Especially if you go, I think, long more than anything. You have to be able to know what your body's doing.
And who knows their body better than you, right? That's the important thing.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the same thing, like with the ear issues I was having. Probably 2 years ago, I would have just kept going and going and going and swimming and swimming and swimming and ignoring it. And actually, I was like, do you know what? I could lose my hearing if I continue getting ear infections. Like, I have to stop. And I wouldn't have done that prior. But as you say, if you know your body and you know it's not right. And that's why I'm still a bit like, I still don't think it's right. Like, if that's such a word. But yeah, I still don't think it's 100%. So it's just trusting yourself.
Well, Jordan, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you today, and I wish you all the best with the up and coming season. And you'll have to let us know how you get on when you decide what you're going for. But thanks so much for coming on and sharing your story with us.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been lovely.
So a massive thank you to Jordan for coming along and chatting with us today. Really interesting, and hopefully I'll get to race with Jordan out in the Duathlon World Championships in May this year. So if you've got any stories, or you want to actually talk to us, drop us a line across one of our social media channels, or to Tri Radar website. We look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.